Earlier today, the Biden administration released revised Title IX regulations. This highly anticipated rules update erodes due process for students accused of sexual assault or harassment and now includes gender identity as a protected class. With these rules taking effect August 1st of this year, what does it mean in practice for the upcoming school year? Joining me now to discuss it is Meg Kilgannon. She's the Senior Fellow for Education Studies at Family Research Council and served in the Department of Education during the Trump administration. Meg, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hi, Joseph.
Your reaction to the revisions released this morning?
Well, they are astounding. We knew that this was going to happen because we reviewed the rule when it was proposed in 2022. And there is just so much in this rule. It's about 500 pages long. It's really hard to describe the results of it other than to say that they have completely demolished protections for women. And this rule does actually harm students, both the women especially, but also male students. It's just a disaster.
Well, Meg, remind people the purpose of Title IX originally to help them perhaps see the irony of what this particular revision has done with basically allowing anyone to be a woman.
Well, Title IX is a little over 50 years old, and it was put into place to prevent discrimination on the basis of sex in education. And at that time, the discrimination was against women. There were very few women in medical school, very few women in law school. There were very few sports programs for women that were sponsored by schools. And so they wanted to even the playing field, pun intended, I guess, for boys and girls in schools, men and women in advanced education. So the gains that women have made over the years as a result of this non-discrimination law have been wonderful, right? And this completely undermines that by including gender identity in the definition of sex or sex discrimination. So now a man who claims he's a woman can present himself on the women's team, in the women's locker room, in the women's dormitory, and women will not be able to object to that.
There's another component of this that is very concerning. Many of them are, but apparently the Biden administration is taking a position on pronouns. And they're essentially saying that you must use preferred pronouns. You must not what they refer to as dead name, which is refer to somebody's name on their birth certificate. Tell us more about that.
It was interesting, Joseph. There was a webinar today on that topic, on the rule itself, right, to explain it. We had a half an hour with the Assistant Secretary Lehman, and she talked a lot about this rule. And someone asked a question in that webinar about why there weren't more protections against dead naming and why there wasn't a more severe punishment for not using pronouns. So there's a lot of controversy over that provision, and the implications of the complications of a rule like this are just incredible because it impacts speech, it impacts free and appropriate education rights. I mean, it impacts so many things.
Well, and to that point, many states have taken a position on this question. It's very different from what the Biden administration is saying right now. And they have specifically said that that boys cannot participate on female sports teams. So given that conflict, how do you expect that to work itself out? And will the schools in one of these states face penalty from the federal government for complying with state law?
Well, I think today the Education Department laid down their marker and said, yes, indeed, you will face a penalty for this. They are going to enforce this rule, and they are going to enforce it aggressively. So I think what they're trying to do here, I live in Fairfax County, for example. You're from Washington State. We've been living under these rules for a long time, right? My county adopted this several years ago. Washington State went down this road a long time ago. So this is designed for the red states and the red counties who have put these protections in place. This rule is coming for you. It's coming for your kids. They want to enforce this rule in your community, in your school, and on your students and on your family, and they will do it. So this is going to be the subject of lawsuits. I've been talking to friends in this space about the rule today, but it's been pretty quiet because I know that the lawyers are meeting and they are planning their cases to file their complaints about this rule as soon as possible.
Yeah. As they should be. Meg, any sense of what the penalties could be for those who dare to defy this new rule from the Biden administration?
Well, you'll be losing your federal funds. You'll be losing your federal funds for your education programs in your state. Now, where I live, we fund most of our education for K-12 through our property taxes. And that's the case in many counties across the country. So it is the poorest places who will be most harmed by this because they rely the most on federal funding to bring their programs up to standard. But the implications for higher ed and colleges are significant.
Well, Meg, one thing I'm sure of in all of this, despite all the questions, is that the debate is not over. You mentioned all the lawyers that are gathering. There is certain to be a lot of litigation on this question. And I'm confident that a lot of states are not going to just take this laying down. And of course, we got an election in November, which could change the future as well. But Meg, we'll keep following it. And thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Joseph.